welcome to your
What
favorite.
is
I was just thinking. I have no idea what episode we're on. It's in the 20s.
Oh my gosh, I don't either. But this is Life Studies.
Yes, Life Study. It's your
Episode
favorite.
Something.
Episode something. Your favorite figure drawing podcast with me and my good friend Mairin-Taj-Kaya. Mairin-Taj, how are you?
Hi, good.
Good. We are not. I am not very organized, so I apologize for not knowing the episode of the show. But it's going to be in the description. So whatever. We draw. I don't know numbers. It's not my job. Anyway. We are here at Curio, which is run by our good friends, and it's a wonderful art shop, and they let us use their space. They're also a gallery, so they have a new show coming up, I guess.
Yeah, they do.
But they're in downtown Lancaster, PA, and you should check them out.
Yeah.
They, genuinely, like, I'm going to go shopping after this. I'm not just saying this because they allow us to use our this little studio of theirs. They are genuinely good people. They know their stuff. They teach at the art school across the street, and they carry a very curated. They don't have everything like a Michaels, because Michaels will shock you with just sheer numbers, and it's usually garbage. They are just very smart about the supplies they're carrying, and they can get you anything. So if you reach out to them, they will special order things for you. Otherwise, just come by Lancaster and shop. It's an awesome shop.
Yeah, or stop in at the sketchbook club in the back room that we're in now. They do a sketchbook club.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
There's to my right, there's a funny stuffed animal based still life thing going on. I should take a picture of it. That's funny.
Yeah, they change the still life content all the time, and it's just if you're in need of some creative camaraderie, then that'd be something to try out. Yeah.
Matt and Nicole, great people. And then the fine folks at Blackwing, which I will put a link in the description. They support us with pencils, which is our favorite kind of support. So, and they make amazing pencils. I don't just say this because they send me pencils. They send me pencils because I reached out saying, I love you guys, and I gushed, and they were like, "Hey, you want stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah." So awesome people.
What was that thing you shared on Instagram recently? It was about drawing. It was about you all come back to me.
It was the meme. It was the it's the moment from the Avengers Infinity War where Thor. I'm sorry for sounding nerdy, but Thor. Captain America and Iron Man are confronting Thanos, who's sitting there sort of playing with rubble. Yeah. And he gives this speech about look at all the stuff you did, and where did it bring you back to me? Yeah. Only Thanos is the pencil. Yeah. And the other superheroes are various goofy supplies that people have experimented with. Right, different mediums. Yeah. And you always come back to the pencil.
I love that. That was so true for me.
Yes. So. I love other media. I'm not trying to poo-poo using other stuff, but let's be honest. This is incredibly old technology that has stuck around for a reason.
Exactly. Tried and tested.
Yeah, so.
We love it.
I do. Anyway, so generally what we do is we talk about life stuff. So Mairin-Taj and I have been working together forever, but we're also good friends. And I hit her up for philosophy. I draw and she models. That's what it is on the surface. But really, what's going on is I come to you with you're the oracle. I come to you with what should I do, and then you drop some wisdom on us. So
it's just neurospicy chinwag.
That's it. See, I'm gonna write that down. So I'm genuinely I want to go through the old sketchbook and look for all the things you've said and make stickers of just the phrases. And no one will know what the hell the stickers are about. But anyway, so the idea is that I'll be drawing and she'll be posing, and we'll just talk about art and life and
And today, gestures.
Yes. So it is June, so we're in the middle of summer. If you don't know, I teach on top of all the goofy men in tights stuff I draw. I also teach at an art college. So generally it's figure drawing and anatomy. Lately it's been a new course called Drawing from Observation. And it's around now that I start giving myself homework for the next semester because I'm goofy. I don't know why. I just like to over prepare for things. So, and I've been thinking about the one thing that I never feel like I know how to teach, because my classes, I don't know that I'm a good professor, but I do take pride in like trying to break it down like it's math in a good way, right? Like one of the things, I hated math all throughout school, and I went to an art school where we had to take math classes, and we had this one professor that was in from Africa, and I remember him explaining to us, like, because we all thought we were bad at math. He's like, you guys realize what you have to study is harder, and we thought, how? Yeah. And he's like, if you learn everything that was painted in 1890, you got to start all over again for 1891, 1892 until now, right? So art history forces you to like have to know all this stuff. He's like, I just need to know a couple of formulas. You could change all the numbers and I'll always know what to do. And that stuck with me. So I try to teach in a way that is like that. Like, you can look at things and this is how you can figure out the angle, figure out the anatomy, figure out the bony landmarks, figure out like all the technical stuff. The one thing I never feel like I know how to teach is gesture drawing, because I love doing it and I've done it forever, but I always feel like that's the one thing I just say to the students, like, I don't know, just go draw.
Just do it.
Yeah. So, and I've seen courses recently where people are charging like good money to teach people online how to do gesture drawings. And I'm not knocking it. I hope it's hopeful, or helpful rather. I don't know how you do that online. Like, I don't know how, because what it amounts to usually is like, and this case when I was in art school, was just go draw. Just like, and we're gonna give you as little time as possible. Here's 30 seconds, here's a minute. And good luck. And you scribble through it and you hate 99% of what you're doing. And then eventually something starts to click and you figure out like, oh, that's a gesture drawing. This is the thing. It's a little like riding a bike where you crash a bunch of times. And then all of a sudden, for like no good reason, you're able to pedal and you're like, I was just doing this a minute ago. Why is it working now? So that's why I come to you, my like spiritual leader, to like explain why can't I teach gesture drawing, and why does it make sense to just do it versus teaching it? It just doesn't feel like, it feels like trying to teach someone how to like give a hug or like kiss or something. Like you don't just go, you do this, you do that, you do that. It's not that kind of a thing, but somehow if you hug a person enough times, you kind of make sense of it.
It's not, it's greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, maybe that's it. And
like it's like there's a feel for it that it's very personal.
Right.
So you want to get into
Yeah, we should probably start drawing so people will actually watch this. Sorry, we're already
I'll try to convey what I'm thinking while posing.
Okay.
Let's do 3 minutes.
Oh, okay, right on.
Yeah.
It's hot enough you don't need to warm up.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, it's so.
It's a little muggy for sure.
Humid out. So I think I've never really taken like online, this is how you gesture classes.
Yeah.
So I don't know what people are offering, and maybe there's some really good gems in there, but I've seen some sort of demos and examples, and I'm wondering if taking an online gesture class is really just, you're seeing how someone is doing it, and then you're going to be effectively learning how to mimic how they do it.
Yes, I agree with that.
Which
100%.
is, mimicry can be a great lesson and a great sort of teaching phase to go through. Don't get me wrong, we should all study the masters and people who know things that we don't have figured out yet, but if you do that enough and you get a feel for that method of gesture drawing, then you're going to get to a point where you have to kind of break that down again and unlearn it.
Yes.
Get out of the habit of doing it that way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we see with students in school as they come to freshman year or sophomore year, and they're like, I have a habit of rendering the figure in this particular way. I've been doing it through high school or whatever.
Yeah, why are you making me change?
I figured it out. I shouldn't have to figure it out again. But I think conversely, when you're just told to just go draw, just do it, just jump in
Yeah.
and struggle and scramble and hate it and fall down constantly, then you have to feel it out as opposed to mimicry.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
The falling down, right? That's
Yeah.
I think that's the magic.
That is the magic.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks because you don't want to tell a student like, yeah, this is the part where you just crash your bike a bunch of times.
No one wants to do that.
Yeah. But you're right. There is no. I shouldn't say there is no. Maybe there is a genius out there with a formula for teaching you exactly how to do wonderful gestures right out the gate.
I wouldn't know what that formula is.
Me neither. And the falling down is probably when you figure out how to do it. I know for me, one of the things we do when we're teaching kids this kind of stuff is, and I know you're a big proponent of like, stop at the chicken scratch, right? Stop drawing like this and just scribbling in things that don't mean anything.
Yeah.
And one of the ways to get them out of that mindset is just to like speed them up, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
When we say 30-second drawings, we're not exaggerating.
No.
We will sometimes start warm-up sessions with 30. I don't always do 30. I sort of read the room. Yeah. Because sometimes you can tell right out the gate, like, these kids are going to freak out if I make them draw for 30 seconds. But
sometimes it's a good shake-up.
Yes. So at least a minute to start with, just because it forces you to not be precious about any part of the drawing, and you certainly don't have time to stop and think your way through your old bag of tricks, right?
Yeah, and analyzing everything you do as you do it.
Right. But 30 seconds is sort of the, like, anything less than that is probably just torturing students for no good reason. But because 30 seconds, the other thing that I think speeding them along does is that, and it's probably cruel, but like when you've been that mean to them, a minute feels like forever. Like 2 minutes feels like, oh, this is silly. I don't need this much time.
Right.
After you've had to like freak out of trying to figure out how to draw the figure in 30 seconds. So, yeah. Now you mentioned something before the show about that sort of tying in with some of your thinking with other art forms, or going from a more free form way of making work, whatever the medium, it doesn't really matter. And then that being if I understood correctly, that being sort of separate from a more analytical approach, and what happens when you go back and forth. Is that sort of what you were?
So you're talking about, we're talking about falling down a bunch,
Yes.
failing to kind of scramble and find the way, specifically in gesture drawing, which can also be arguably described as playful practice.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if struggling to achieve that sort of state, being able to just kind of let go or do it really quickly, like within 30 seconds to a minute, and detach from analysis of what you're doing while you're doing it, /play, failure and scrambling. If you're having difficulty accessing that or being in that place, if there's a way to access it but in a different medium or in a different discipline. So
right.
say you are into drawing and you're also a musician. And it's really easy for you to sit down and just mentally be like, I'm just gonna riff and just jam, and it doesn't have to be anything, it doesn't have to be a flawless song. Can you do that? And then after doing that for a little bit, does that help you be in a mental state of like, oh, I can just riff, I can just play and goof around. And then go into sketching and be like, oh, all right, I'm more easily in that state.
Right.
You know?
I wonder. I'm not good at other, like, I don't have another artistic outlet other than, although a little bit of pottery.
There you go, yeah.
But that doesn't feel like what you're describing. Like, I'm not able to sort of free form any kind of pottery work.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, actually, you know what? That is probably a lie. now that I think of it, because I got into pottery by mistake.
Yeah.
I was at the Pennsylvania Governor's School, and I was an assistant teacher, and they were trying to hand out jobs for all the various departments. And being a painter, I just assumed I'd get the painting department. But because I look like a guy that can lift heavy things, I got the sculpture and ceramics department.
Yeah.
So I had twice the students as everyone else, and my job literally was just like carry bags of clay, mix bags of clay, bring the clay back, carry bags of glazes, mix the glazes, bring them back. Like, it was a lot of physical stuff. So I had no background in ceramics, and so
Imposing though.
oh shit, you're right. And so getting into it was, like I said, I didn't plan for it, but also because I tend to over prepare. I started going before classes started to the ceramics studio just because I felt like, okay, I should probably know how to throw a pot. And there was no one there to show me, so I was just trying to figure it out on my own. And I sucked at it. I was like so bad because I was trying to, I would come from painting where there's a technique for everything and there's a process for everything. And I didn't know what the process was for throwing a pot.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I started working with the actual professor, and he's like, clay's alive, dude. You can't force it to do what you want.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, and so once I just started going, okay, well, fuck it. I guess I just, I don't know, just keep letting the clay spin until something happens. And it's not that simple. There are actual techniques to it. But now that you're saying this, I'm thinking, because I just went recently, my kids are really into ceramics, my two girls. And my middle daughter was like, let's get a family membership because I want you to come with and make stuff. And I threw 2 pots, which I haven't done for 30 years or something. And it felt very second nature because I just went in with no expectations. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I'm just gonna.
There you go.
Yeah. So you're right. That's a long story to say. Basically, you're right again.
That's
Because
that playness.
Yeah.
That playful, fuck it
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. Shit. Look at that. I had no idea. I was gonna sit here with a straight face and go I don't do that.
Yeah. Well, because and I said before the show, but for me, another avenue is writing.
Yes.
Both poetry and storytelling, and
Go join her Substack, or no, wait, you're not on Substack.
I'm not on Substack
Patreon.
yet. I
My God.
probably should get on.
I'm associating writing with Substack. Forgive me. I've been on Substack a lot.
That's
Go join
fair.
her Patreon, you knuckleheads. Seriously, her writing on art is also just as good as her art.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah.
I'm exploring how to articulate and discuss these types of issues with how to go about writing or not writing, how to go about the drawing, the gesture process. But
I mean, that was a big part of art school back in the day. You were expected to be able to write about your work.
Yeah.
Did you lean on the wall? You might have
a
some.
little bit.
You might have some plaster on you.
Yeah, feels good.
Okay.
But and that can be true. A lot of artists do have some sort of writing
Switch off for a second.
interest, or there are definitely overlaps. But with anything, for me, I was just I was working on some stories this past week, and I'm just noticing that I can start it with the mentality, the inner sort of energy of, all right, we'll just fuck it, we'll just see what
Just
happens.
start something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just need to do the discipline of writing and
Right.
seeing where it goes. I don't have any plan for it.
Do you need the fan, by the way?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
And lately I've been, having a little bit more of a problem with being in that state with my drawing, with my art. And so I was just wondering, can practicing accessing that in a different medium help you translate that into, the area that you're struggling with it?
Yeah. I suspect you're onto something. I remember many years ago, there was this idea of mental practice and doing stuff subconsciously and there was some study where they had a group of people practice free throws because that's such an easily measurable thing.
There you go.
And then they had a group that didn't practice free throws, and then they had a group that didn't but thought about it for a period of time. Let's say it's an hour a day.
Okay.
So you're just supposed to visualize throwing a basketball for an hour. And don't ask me where this study was done. It's been forever. I just don't remember. But I remember the gist of it was just that like the folks that thought about it did almost as well as the ones that physically did it.
Yes, right.
And I think that is lining up with what you're saying. I think just the thinking of art counts.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
So
For sure. That's like the similar study with, these studies done about how often you exercise your brain to recall information
yeah.
allows you to be
Recall
better at
information.
recall information.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's more, and maybe that's part of the answer for me anyway, is like, how do you teach gesture drawing? You teach the skills that help you better access gesture drawing.
Yeah.
So like, it's more mental than technical.
I think so. I just,
But people want the real, like, visual technical
Right.
proof of this is how you do it.
yeah, and
That's what they see.
I suspect that you're right in that like a lot of these online gesture classes are just watch me do it and this is how you do it.
Yeah. Right.
Which is you're right. It's helpful, and I think I don't do a lot of demos in class because I feel like I'm eating up their work time.
Yeah.
Where that's where the magic is going to happen for them. But I do recognize that there are times when they're just like, I just can't see it.
Yes.
And if they can't, do this, going back to the basketball analogy, if they can't visualize it, then how are they going to figure it out in the first place?
Right.
And that's why the gesture thing bugs me because there's no extra. I could show you how I do them, and that will probably just trip you up more than anything.
Yeah.
Because I'm showing you how I do a thing that I've been doing for whatever 30 years. It doesn't seem fair, right? It doesn't like it goes back to the hug thing. Like here, I'm going to explain to you how I hug.
Yeah.
Whatever one of my kids or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can't replicate that. So
Right.
I think you're right. I think they got to think about it, and that's part like it's a mental thing. But I wonder if gesture isn't just. It's almost physical first. Like they have to be able to look at someone or something. I say someone because gesture drawings are generally done with people.
Yeah.
But they need to look at someone and force themselves to just start making marks that correspond with what they think they're seeing.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't make any sense at first.
Yeah.
And then you start to, I think you start to rewire your brain to make correlations between my eyes and my hand, and like eventually you learn how to tighten that up. But until you just sort of like slog through a couple of them, almost not brainlessly, but almost without knowing what the hell you're doing, it's just not gonna. I don't think you can teach it in that way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bad teacher.
No.
Are you posing? But I should be drawing.
Oh no, I wasn't.
Sorry.
I can do a little pose here. I think that it's like you have to do a little bit of prep work as an artist psychologically,
Yeah.
just to wrap your head around like what you need to ask of yourself, and then separate from that, like you just need to jump in the pool and do it.
Yeah.
Do the treading of the water, and then it is helpful to see someone else do it and be like, oh, that's a version that may or may not be insightful to me. But
Right.
I would generally just caution anyone against spending too much time or overly investing their time of practice into practicing someone else's formula.
Yes.
I've done that with other people's work, like I've studied how people gesture or draw the figure or whatever, and it's educational up to a point, but when you get beyond that point, then you're just sort of, you're not, what you're learning how to do isn't a personal expression.
Yeah.
it's just mimicry.
Yeah.
And
I
art
think
needs to be personal.
100%. Yeah.
So
I've been using the hug metaphor, but maybe a better one is a signature. You know,
yeah.
you're learning to write your signature by watching, somebody else write theirs
Yeah.
is not how that works. So, but you think, so do you think, going back to your question of like just playing within another medium, come back to the art. I'm curious about that. I mean, I wish I were a musician. I would love to see like what does my brain do if you just I don't know, freestyled on a trumpet for an hour and then came to drawing.
Yeah, it's almost like you're psyching yourself up for a state of being that will help you in whatever medium.
Yeah. And I mean, what's ironic is that's probably just as hard to teach. When I was at the governor's school, a friend of mine was a trumpet player, and this guy was like incredible. He was the nerdiest looking guy you ever saw, but like, it was like there was like a very cool dude trapped in this nerdy body. You know what I mean? And he would just say, he was a very, I don't know how else to put it. The dude was just super cool. But if I showed you a picture of the guy, you'd be like, this guy? Are you kidding? And then he'd play his trumpet and it would all make sense. You go, oh, that's why. You know? And he was an assistant teacher, but he had an actual class, unlike me. And he was teaching improvisation.
Nice, wow.
And he asked me.
Sounds like the hardest thing you could do.
Oh God, I thought no. I thought you would just whatever. You just make sounds. And he asked me to sit in on it because he wanted us to a group of us to come in and paint.
Yeah.
While they were playing.
Cool.
And that went really great. The painters were like, "Yeah, I got this, no problem." And they're like, we set up a big sheet of paper outside. I mean, it was huge, and they were just pushing paint all over the place, and it worked great.
Right.
But the musicians were like, when I walked into the class, they were in a dark theater, so they couldn't see each other.
Oh.
And I'd hear like, because they were just in different corners of the room, making sounds, hoping something would start. It was like watching people hit flint trying to start a fire.
Yeah.
Only everything was wet and no one could get anything going.
Wow.
So I don't know if one would help the other. I suspect if it were me, I'd probably just get so goddamn frustrated with the music that I'd come back to drawing and just be like, thank God.
Yeah. Sure.
Or maybe the opposite. Maybe I'm just like, screw it. I'm done with the arts. I'm gonna learn math. I don't know.
Well, you also have you seem to have a real clear set of tools or methods for just getting into doing the work, and it's very accessible to you. And I think maybe if you're, for me, it's like sometimes phases through life or whatever, you might just need, some people might need to still work on how do I psych myself up for a thing. And if that's not an area that you struggle in, then it makes sense that you're needing to figure that out.
I can kind of, I notice this isn't what you're implying, but I'm just hacky enough that I can just start drawing something.
Yeah. Right.
But often, especially lately, I'm not always so thrilled with it. So that's been a tricky thing. And so I've been thinking lately about, honestly, ironically, looking at some of these online art schools. Should I try to do something where I can do it on my own time, just to see if there's another set of tools I can access, which is why I probably give off the impression I can just jump into something, because I just have obsessively looked for more and more tools. I suspect after some point I'm going to realize none of that shit matters. I just need to just cut loose and chill out, which is why your method of figure drawing is always sort of magical to me. This idea of just I'm starting with lines in these drawings. Mairin-Taj will often just start with masses of tone, which is, I think it's amazing. So,
we have very different ways of working, for sure.
Yes, and it's awesome.
And that for me, that comes really just down to how my brain works and how my vision for what I'm trying to see that's not on the page yet
Yeah.
works.
And where did that come about? Like, did that come from gesture practice? Like, you just sort of, because the reason I'm asking this is that when I work like that, it's usually with gesture drawings. If I'm working with, right now we're using pencil, but I'll sometimes break out a graphite stick,
Yeah.
and I'll draw a little more in the way that you're drawing. So did it come out of a practice of gestures, and then you were able to sort of lock something in early and then build it up, or were you like conscious, like I want to draw in masses and not line?
No, that was not a conscious choice.
Okay.
I don't think. I don't remember that being that way. I do remember I've been drawing since I was 3,
Yeah.
and a really big influence for me all through childhood was Alan Lee, this
Oh yeah.
illustrator, English illustrator. He did a lot of the Lord of the Rings concept art.
You
And
okay?
and he primarily, I mean, he's put out books of just, graphite sketches and studies and
Yes.
concept art. And so growing up, I would study his finished published drawings, and then that informed how I would try to problem solve in my own practice, because I drew all the time.
Yeah.
And then in college, in art school, things were very different then for me in the administration, but we had to do a lot of life studies and even figure drawing, where all throughout the 6-hour class we were assigned different sort of styles and techniques for drawing, and then we were basically just forced, and sometimes I really didn't like this because sometimes I didn't like the sort of method we were being taught,
Right.
but you were forced to just draw this in this way for this amount of time.
Yeah.
And then, okay, now you're going to draw this in this way for this amount of time. From like all the tools that you may have heard, like you're not allowed to look at your paper. You only are.
Oh yeah,
at,
blind contour.
That stuff, and then just like, okay, look at this artist, and then this is how they do it with the demo, and then okay, now you're going to play around and do that. And so I think I just found 2 main ways that I enjoyed most accessing the form. One of them is sort of circuitous, like interior, like wire building of the figure.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm drawing what a wire sculpture would do.
Right.
And then the other way, and that's a part of my layering technique. The other way is just putting down scribbly, messy, seemingly blobular like tone, and then carving out of that as if I'm taking a block of stone and I'm just defining the shapes from there. So weirdly, I think like a sculpturist.
Yeah. I was going to point out 2 things. Like, I used to draw like that in art school because I primarily drew in charcoal.
Yes, charcoal. Yeah, we did that too.
Right,
yeah.
and when you're drawing, you often use a carpenter's pencil, which was also a favorite tool of mine back in the day.
Yeah.
And it allows for that kind of like charcoal, like it's a wide piece of graphite.
Yeah. More
I got out of the practice of charcoal just because I got out of art school.
Yeah.
And it's just messy as shit, and it's just so that's the part about it. I'm like, God damn it, like that. I remember that being magical, right? Because you plop down a bunch of charcoal, then you erase some, and you add some. And it is like sculpture, additive and subtractive sculpture.
Exactly. Right.
And by that I mean, if you're not familiar, additive is like clay.
Yeah.
Subtractive is marble.
Yeah.
Clay, you can do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing was when my daughters were young. I remember, everybody's seen kids grab a pencil or a crayon like this and scribble, and I remember thinking like why? They're not seeing that anywhere. Why are they doing this? And my wife found this like kiddie easel, and I introduced them to watercolor, and it was like I gave them like an ADD drug. Like they just slowed down all of a sudden because I realized they're doing this because they just want to cover something, and they're getting annoyed because it's taking so long.
Yeah. When
I gave them paint, they could like now slowly cover a big area, and they had the time to stop and think about it. And that's what I always think of when your approach is like this. Like, not that I'm not trying to compare you to a child. I just mean I suspect noodling and like trying to get a perfect outline would just be tedious and boring.
Oh yeah. Very.
And you get straight to the building of it, which
Yeah.
is awesome. Like,
That's where like I can be interested in that.
right,
Yeah.
right. And you work, I shouldn't say you work, you often work very small. Like, we're
Yeah.
talking small sketches, right? Like, so 3x5 or something.
Yeah.
What would you do? Now we're sort of off topic, but
And my sketchbook lately, though, my primary recent sketchbook is like in the 8x10
okay.
size, so that's like where I'm at.
I there's a part of me that wants to give you like, we had to work on like rolls of paper
Yeah.
when I was in art school. Just like,
Yeah.
what do you do if it's this big?
Yeah.
You know, you need like a hunk of graphite, like
Yeah.
an actual. So.
Yeah. Well, that's I have like I don't show this online or anything because I don't believe in sharing all the process all the way. But I have larger drawings I'm working on. You know, like 18
Awesome.
by 24.
Okay.
And for me, that's where I do this with my sketches too. But that's where I really get to. I use my hands a lot. Just like pushing graphite around.
Yeah.
And being more.
Did you ever paint with it? Did you ever mix it with? So you can mix graphite with like alcohol.
Oh yeah,
And
I've seen that.
yeah.
I haven't done that. No, I should.
Alcohol is nice because
I should try
you
that.
can do it with water,
Yeah.
but alcohol is nice because it dries so fast.
Right.
And then you can go. It's like watercolor. You can go back into and erase.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I've done and it's fun, but it gets. It's like, it's panic inducing to know what a watercolor is because your like brain is telling you, holy shit, you just messed this up,
Right.
and then you have to remind yourself that no, just let it dry and you can erase it if it sucks. Like, it's not a big deal. But yeah, I'm taking with your process, and I'd love to see like how much bigger, like what happens if you go like this size of this wall.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
but
I would get lost in
no
lots of
pressure.
shape building.
Yeah, I mean, it'd probably be like those
So much shapes.
those Alphonse Mucha paintings that are like, you see them online or in a book, and you're like, oh, that's amazing, and then you see him standing next to it, and things are like 12 feet tall,
Right.
and you're like, how, dude? So, anyway, I'm sorry. The point is, it sounds like all that sort of grew out of your gesture drawing,
Yeah.
and your gesture drawing and my gesture drawings don't look anything alike, and I think that's the point.
Yes.
Is that if you're trying to learn gesture drawing, probably the only way to learn it is to make yourself do it and don't give yourself time. Like, just don't say, I'm gonna do a 5-minute gesture. No, it has to be like a minute or less.
Yeah.
And it's gonna look terrible for the first, I don't know, 100 times, 1,000 times,
Yeah.
until it starts to feel right. And then you're able to sit down and just kind of bang out little gestures of people. And it starts to feel more like observation and less like panic,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, and just like students always do this, but gestures aren't supposed to be a finished, finessed drawing.
No,
You know,
not at all.
There's so much. That's what I do I do like time lapse demos on my Patreon.
I'm gonna
For
draw
part
real
of-
fast, but if you don't mind,
Yeah,
you
go
can
for it.
just sit like that.
Where I'm just showing you my process and
Yeah.
kind of, and I've started doing these talk through demos where I'm like talking a little bit about whatever that particular demo seems to best demonstrate. And there's so much to cover, so I try to keep it really like short and sweet to one or two aspects of the process.
Right.
But what I'm reiterating time after time after time is just, I think what most helps the practice of gesture drawing is being okay with, in fact, looking forward to some form of a scribbly thing on
Yeah.
the page,
Yeah.
and then working and responding to that.
Yeah, I watch, so I'm a patron, so again, you guys should be joining her Patreon. And it's every Friday, and I
Yeah.
watch these,
Same
and
Fridays.
one of the things I've been glad you brought it up because I've always meant to ask.
Mm.
It always looks like you've, obviously you've done the drawing and then you've added the commentary. You're not talking while you're drawing.
No.
At least, you know,
In
with a
this-
time lapse, it just wouldn't make sense.
Right.
But there's always a sense of like, I think I can see you drawing, and then something happens, and then you figure it out, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I
Um,
respond to what's on the page.
Yeah, which is always more interesting. So in that case, I'm like learning, but it's less about like mimicking what you're doing, and more about like, oh, I get what just happened. Like here's a mistake maybe that she turns into something else, or
Yeah.
a dark tone that is hinging that she didn't really like she didn't go, okay, I'm gonna put in 80% gray here.
No.
But she has it now, and hey, that works as a hinge for this and that and this. So yeah, that's always more interesting to me than just like watching it and trying to mimic you, or any artist at this point. So yeah, go join our Patreon, you dummies.
But I think that for me, I would just stress, again, for me, sloppiness helps.
Yes.
Being almost inarticulate with the graphite,
Yeah.
because that's your base layer that you can build into. And so
Yeah.
many students are like, oh, but the first layer has to be like this measured, perfect, studied.
Oh God,
no,
yes.
No, don't.
I have made so many students unhappy by teaching them, like human proportions, and they're trying to measure during a 1 minute gesture drawing.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So,
But it's let go,
Yeah.
and just like.
it's I part of me gets, I mean, especially in my work, like you're supposed to be on all the time. You can't do bad drawings. You're a pro. You're supposed to always be like making the shots, and so and I think these kids put that kind of pressure on themselves. Like every drawing is supposed to be a winner.
Right.
You're not supposed to do bad drawings. I want to be a pro. I want to be a rock star. And that's awful. That's how you make the bad drawings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This is a good podcast.
I hope that is of some direction or help.
Yeah. I think we don't, I don't know how much you hear from folks that watch the show. And I don't hear as much as I would love to hear from artists, like what is working with the show and what's not. So if you want to drop a comment and say about what part of the show is working for you and what part isn't, or what would you like us to cover, that'd be great and helpful.
Yeah.
But what I do often hear is like, I just like listening to you guys talking about stuff.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you want to learn how to do art, and people who don't want to be artists are listening to a show going like, I don't know, but it sounds cool. All right, so I think our takeaway, we're probably gonna wrap this up soon here. So the takeaway is you can't teach gesture drawing, not really.
Not really.
And but you can learn it.
Yeah.
So just make yourself do a bunch of gesture drawings in as loose a manner as possible, as quickly as possible. You mentioned blind contour, actually. I wanted to touch on that before we check out here. The concept is that a contour drawing is just, you start here and you start tracing as if you're following the figure. You're not doing what I'm doing here. And the thinking with blind contour is that you're not going to get a good drawing. You're going to teach people to stop staring at their paper.
Yeah.
Often when you start figure drawing, we had a rule in figure drawing class where it was like, I think he said 70-30. You should be looking at the model 70% of the time and your paper 30% of the time.
Yeah.
I probably don't follow that anymore like I should. But blind contour, the idea is that you don't get to look at all, because we have to break you of this habit of staring at paper. But it
Which
doesn't.
is painful, but it's very necessary.
Yeah, and it does not lead to good drawings.
No.
Everybody thinks they're gonna do some genius thing, and when they go back, they're shocked.
And then they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not a genius."
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's another, it's like an ego break, Get out of that.
Yeah, get that out of the way. Yeah, actually, that's a great point. It is hard sometimes to get. I think you and I tend to focus on the students that are like want to improve and struggling, but there are a lot of students that need to improve that just have decided, I know what I'm doing. And they are often the ones that get really frustrated with gesture drawing.
Yes.
Because they're like, this could look good if you just give me time. I'm like, dude, that's
not the point.
No, and also you're lying. So, don't go in with expectations of good drawings.
I mean, my gesture drawing sort of look, if you will, which is constantly morphing in and of itself, that's not how my finished
Exactly.
drawings look. And I
Yes.
have no desire to make them look that way because that's absurd.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like you have to find, this is an inaccurate way to put it, but for time's sake, like you have to find your style of gesture and recognize that that's going to look different from your finished work.
Yeah.
whatever that is.
Yeah. They're the calisthenics, right? They're your
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
practice that keep you sharp. Sorry for we are in a downtown
Woo!
and we're near a police station also, so sorry. But that's where art happens in
Yeah.
cities. Sorry, it happens everywhere. I just make that up. It is like no one. Joe Kolka, who used to teach at PCAT here,
Yeah, he's great.
he said a friend of his told him while talking to some students that doing push-ups don't get you into the Olympics, but everybody in the Olympics have done push-ups.
Right.
And that's how you should be thinking of gesture drawings. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to make you a great artist, but it's still the thing you kind of have to do to teach yourself to get there.
Yeah.
And
It's a stepping stone.
Yeah,
You need
yeah.
to have it in your repertoire.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. And these are your push-ups. So we're probably at 46 minutes. Probably wrap it up there.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the show for today. If I can think of any resources about gesture drawing that might be helpful, I'll post them in the links. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Thank you, Mairin-Taj, for your wisdom and for everything. Yeah, honestly, like I hope I make it clear how grateful I am that you make the show with me. So.
Oh, it's such fun.
Okay,
It's such
cool.
fun. I hope it helps. I think with gestures, just the short answer is diversify your resources.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Just learn as much as you can.
Yeah. So thank you to the folks at Curio for hosting us. Again, I'll put their website link in the description.
Yeah.
And thank you to the Blackwing folks.
Yay!
And we love them very much. And we'll talk to you guys in a month.